Hello and welcome all to another episode of Chai Chat and Community. I am Dr. Chris Malika Bhadra, and tonight I'll be talking about being an international student. I'll be talking about the fate and the journey all the international students have had during these past months while we were suffering from COVID-19 in Australia. And to discuss further on this matter, I have around the table with me three very important people, three people who have been helping students, someone who is a student herself, and I am very sure that this conversation is going to be very enlightening and positive to all the students who might be listening out for us. Let me just quickly go around the table. I have with me Karthik Arasu, Anjali Dua, and Darshan Pavani. First of all, thank you so much, all of you, to joining me tonight. And I'll start with you, Karthik. Hello and welcome, and tell us about a bit about yourself and to our audiences.
Hello, Chris. This is a very important topic, as you rightly mentioned. I'm glad to be part of this discussion. I'm Karthik Arasu I represent Australia India Sports Council, and we run a project, International Student Support Hotline, which is a Facebook group, and also, it's a project we're running in partnership with various other organizations since March, actually. So we've been heavily involved in whichever way we can support the international students, both in providing them with whatever the necessary support we can do through food packagings or grocery supports, and also in advocacy, raising their issues with the universities and the governments, both state and federal government. So we've been doing this since March, and I'm glad to be part of this discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Karthik. That's a massive task that you've been doing, and we can't thank you enough for all the help that you've been giving all the students. Moving on to Darshan Pavani. Darshan, thank you for being with us tonight. Please tell our audience a bit about yourself.
Right. Thank you so much, Chris. So yes, everyone, my name is Darshan Pavani, and I was a student. I joined the University of Melbourne in 2018, and I'm currently a graduate now, and I was working with a company before till the last week. So yes, I'm pretty much involved with the international community myself. I was the president of the Indian Graduate Student Society, which is an Indian club at the University of Melbourne. And we've helped students pretty much in their endeavors of developing local skills, as well as networking and all the other activities that get them to feel more like home in Australia. So yes, that's more about me. And really, this topic about international students is really close to me as well. So yes, thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Thanks, Darshan. And I can bet you on that this topic is close to all our hearts, because I think at one point of time, all of us were in that position. Sorry, it's very close to us, even in these difficult times. And moving on to our third guest, Anjali, a very warm welcome tonight, and thank you for being here. Please tell our audience a bit about yourself.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, so as Chris already mentioned, I'm Anjali Dua and I'm hailing from India. So currently I'm studying Masters in Marketing from University of Melbourne. This has been a good roller coaster ride because I was in my first semester, I could see the pre-COVID cases. I could see how everything was offline, and this year everything going through online, also facing a lot of hardship to different aspects, whether it's like financial, social, network. But at the end of the thing, we survived. We did it together. Apart from the studying, I'm associated with a lot of volunteering, whether it's like associating myself with Lentil as Anything, Red Cross, or Khalsa Foundation, as it provides me the sense of purpose about the cause of humanity I really care about. So thank you so much for inviting me, and I really look forward for the meeting.
Thank you, all of you. All right, diving deep into the conversation, the very first question I would have for all of you here is your individual role or contribution during these months to helping out all these students who were in need of food, groceries, and whatnots. Karthik, I'll probably start with you being the senior in the group. That please tell us what you've been doing, your organization has been doing to helping out those numerous students who were here for the first time or were struggling mainly during this pandemic situation.
With the, as you said, like we were students, international students ourselves. So when I started seeing this initial stages in March, I realized quickly that it's going to be for the students who are away from their families and they had no option to go back, and here they don't have a family support. So as a community, how we can support them? And thankfully, various members of the community and various organizations came forward and started openly helping, be it through social media or through direct involvement. So personally, through my organization, which I'm part of, Australia India Sports Council, initially we started the advocacy. We wrote to all the universities with a set of requests, like fee relief, reducing the fee, removing unnecessary extra costs like the students were paying for their amenities and facilities, and also giving them chance to do the course in a leisure time, like it's not like within a stipulated time. So whatever we discussed with the students and asked their requirements, and we wrote to the universities. And at that time, the universities were not giving any financial support. They didn't realize what is the gravity of the pandemic will be. So we started writing at the beginning itself. And then we wrote to the federal government as well, and the state governments, asking for contribution from them in financial support, and also for like temporary residents like Darshan, where they have their limited time will be expiring soon. So we asked for the government to give them extra months on the visa, based on their whichever stages they are on, 6 months or 12 months. We were not successful in that, but we were successful in majority of the things. Be it the universities coming on board, giving them the financial assistance. So that advocacy part worked in such way, and various other organizations also started writing, making appeals directly as well. So it helped, and now we know various governments, state governments, and universities have given the financial support, which is great. Even the federal government has given a financial support through Red Cross with the allocation of funds, which is also coming in very handy right now at this stage. And then we started giving out the groceries. I think we were one of the first organizations to give the grocery support packs. This is initially started for the students who are returning back from India, and they have to be on isolation, like 14 days isolation. At that time, the government was making that whoever is returning overseas, they have to be self-isolation. So they had no option to go and buy groceries, and the stores were running out of stock. All these things, crazy things were happening. So to make them at ease, we started doing that. But eventually it became a big project. We started giving out the groceries because everybody was losing their jobs, and particularly the new students who just landed here, and they didn't have a clue what's going on, and they didn't know where to go and get the support. So we were reaching out, and through various organizations, we had partnership throughout Australia, actually, in Sydney, Queensland, Perth. We collaborated with organizations, and if somebody is asking us from other parts of Australia, we write to the other organizations, and they go and deliver the groceries. Even in Victoria, we had worked with so many other organizations, be it Indian Care or Sant Nirankari Mission, or Gurdwaras or temples. We collaborated with them, and that way we could reach. There was an organization, We Care, charity organization. We collaborated with these organizations, and in my opinion, there would be at least 4,000 packs given out till date, just within our circles of organizations, without taking into consideration of others. So this is, and we're still continuing to do. We're still giving the groceries.
That's a huge task that you've undertaken, Patrick. Not to mention a very positive attitude there. Moving on to Darshan. Darshan, tell us about your journey. How was it out there helping the students, and what did you have to do on a personal level to help everyone out?
Right. So when this pandemic started, I had graduated. So I was one of those lucky folks who actually got a good graduation ceremony before moving out. But I think what went wrong was the job market after the pandemic started. I really think when I look back, I see the fact that it took me 5 months to actually land a job, and that even that was not in my field. So the job market definitely fell down, but I was one of those organization leaders who was in touch with Karthik and the Gurudwara team, who really helped us out with, we used to organize these bi-weekly meetings where they used to have a chat with us and talk to us about how the students in our university are coping up, the challenges that we were facing, and what support they could offer us and things like that. That was just not the grocery support. That was also about the mental health and discussing about what issues need to be raised with the government. So I think I played a major role there, whereby I represented my university students, and we came up with those challenges that we were facing. And I think with the new president of our club at the university, Shivani, we were really keen on doing something for the university students, and I was very specific to our university, because that's something that was under my purview, and I could really do something to make a difference. And that's where the journey began. We gathered as a team. We had a chat about how we could be helping the students. We reached out to organizations like the ones that Karthik spoke about, and we actually had them deliver the groceries to us, whereby we reached out to the students, and our team basically looked after the entire thing about reaching out to students, as well as putting the groceries into smaller packs and ensuring that everyone gets an equal amount. And there's a fair allocation of groceries so that everyone benefits out of this. So I think that distribution part was pretty much handled by the club, and we really think we helped about 150 to 200 students, and that was a major thing, especially with us. Also, not just the grocery part. I think we've gone a mile ahead when I think in the last couple of months, we even organized a blood donation campaign, and it was a fantastic job done by the club, as well as all the international students that Karthik and I have been pretty much in touch with. Everyone's doing something or the other to help the community, and it's just not the international student community or the international community. We're just talking about everyone, even the localites, because you don't know your blood being donated goes to some specific international person. It can go to anyone. And when we are just being open enough and donating this and doing our bit, I think there is nothing like international students or anything. We're just a community together who really knows that we are going through this together, and we need to do something about it.
Absolutely, Darshan. Like, I think in problems such as these, we tend to forget about the borders, and we need to come together as one piece of humanity and help whosoever we can. That was very noble when you mentioned about the blood donation.
That's correct, Chris. In fact, I'm sorry to cut you here, but you can ask Karthik about this. That Karthik, a very genuine question: do you ever see the person before you help them or not?
Of course not.
Exactly, because to us, everyone's human. Everyone's going through hardships, and we're just trying to help. We feel we're fortunate enough that we are able to do that.
Yeah,
I think that's the need of the hour. Sorry, Karthik, you were saying something.
We don't know the background. We don't know, like some of the houses I've been to. I also personally go and deliver many deliveries. Sorry, one of the drivers who deliver them as volunteers. The houses, some of the houses we go to, they could be Eastern European, Chinese, Vietnamese. Like the mix was. It was completely, I can't guess by the name, by the numbers, we can't have any clue. So we don't check anyone, we don't know anything. The help requirement comes up and we just go and deliver it. That's, and like Darshan said, they were also giving back. Blood donation camp, which Darshan actually, I think he was spearheading for his mom's birthday or something. I remember that conversation. He was doing that for his mom's birthday, and that was very good. That's a way of giving back to the community, what the community is looking after.
Absolutely. Moving on to you, Anjali. You are someone who's actually in the current student zone. So, as you mentioned, you've seen pre-COVID and post-COVID days very well in being a student yourself. So tell us what your journey has been like. How have you been able to individually help out anyone who was out for help?
Yeah, first of all, before I start with my journey, I would personally wanted to appreciate Darshan's and Karthik's efforts, because when it comes to me, I know I haven't done any tangible effort that needs to be counted, because I was still amongst the people who were just so blinded with what's happening around us. It took me a while especially after the statement that was released by Prime Minister, who wanted to prioritize the localites and and was given the free will to international students who can go back to their country,
Yeah.
because that was a clear hit on us, because we never knew, we were still evaluating, is it right to still stay in the country, taking the fact that there is no community feeling anymore, because that statement really made us believe that there isn't a barrier between people living in Australia and people coming to study in Australia. But then I remember how having a conversation with my parents and how they want me to be back, because they feel that it's not. I assure you, we will be things are very uncertain, unstable. Given the fact there is no community organization really uplifting international students, and I was very insecure. And if I say I know, I'm so sure people around me would be very insecure. But then there was a community support. There was a complete wave where I saw a lot of communities coming forward, and I would not say a regional or a specific ethnicity communication, but I would say that where the Gurdwara and mosque, I would say that everyone just like held the hand in hand and joined force of specifically targeting international students, being there when they need, whether it's financial needs or the essential needs. And I feel looking at the perseverance of everyone made my heart full about, yes, there is someone to take care of us. Yes, we are not alone. Even if students really do not need it, we just needed a social, like in the back of the mind, we needed a support about, yeah, we can carry on anyway, and we have a back support. So having received the help, I realized that I could only help not only because of the financial things, because of the hardship I faced. I could only join an organization and help them. Either it's like by assembling, disassembling, packaging, or even having the data noted for them. So I joined this organization like the Khalsa Foundation or Khalsa Eid, as we say that, and help them during the process. And I feel my help should not be counted as help, because there are much more people in the front line who did much beyond that what I could have ever done. But what I could at least have done is like have asked my friends if they're fine or not. Just have a very mental health checkup, like just to see if everything is okay or not, and just to keep reminding people that we are in together, and also letting them know about the communities, organizations that are still helping people.
I think, Anjali, you first of all are being very humble when you say that your help should not be counted. Every tiny bit of help needs to be counted, because that is what we are doing back to the community. And it's just very noble of all of you to keep doing what you're doing. Moving on, Karthik and Darshan, both of you touched on a bit that how Gurudwaras were kind of having these meetings and they were trying to help out. So my next question would be that these places of worship, how have these like mosques or masjids or Gurudwaras, how have they contributed in their bits and parts to the students? Karthik, I would like to start with you. What was your experience with these places of worship in these times?
I will take the word from you and also mention this to Anjali. Anjali, the help what you're doing, it's actually motivate us. When we do the support, putting our time away, sometimes we don't know whether it's being recognized by the students. The community recognizes it, but the actual support what we are doing for the real people, whether they recognize or whether they appreciate, the only way we can come to know is when you come and stand with us. So we know that that's a motivation. So thanks for doing that. And Chris, with regards to the places of worship coming to help, actually one of the most affected groups are the places of worship. No one was going to the places of worship. They can't get the people in, and they survive on donation. They also have the real payments, mortgages for their buildings and the staff. They have the staff and the utilities. They also were going through the same issues what everybody was going through. They were also not getting the funds through, but still they managed to do an amazing job. Be it the temples, gurudwaras, mosques and churches. We actually work with many of them directly. And for example, Officer Gurudwara, they are on the other end of Victoria. And if you talk about in the west, there is a Swaminarayan temple in Tarneet, and then Durga temple in Rockbank. And there was a church in I think Pakenham. They were all coming together and giving these packets. And the organization called We Care, they started this grocery run, and majority of the donations came from places of worship. I know at least 6 Hindu temples gave each like 300 packets, 150 packets of groceries, all packed, and they went and delivered it to that organization. 2 churches, mosques, so many mosques, and not Indian based. I'm talking about mosques from Afghani mosques, and mosques from Iranian community, and also the Gurdwaras, Officer Gurdwara, and I think Keysborough Gurdwara. They were all donating it to that organization, on top of what they were doing. And they were amazing, and they had a big volunteer base as well. So their volunteers were driving and delivering the grocery support. Without their support, it would have been very hard. And they are not quantified in numbers, but that support was amazing, and they actually filled a immense gap where no one could fill it. And so happy to have worked with them, and we took the inspiration from them actually how to do this service without any expectations.
I've seen a few times on TV that these people at Gurdwara, they were serving out free langar meals. Even when I went to visit Gurdwara a few weeks ago, they were asking me, "Do you want a free meal?" I said, "No, keep it for someone who actually needs it." So that was monumental, something that what they were doing. Darshan, what has your experience been with these religious places?
I think I'm someone who visits those places. So again, I've been someone who's been fortunate that I haven't had to go through a lot of hardships during this pandemic. Apart from the isolation part, where I had to stay at home like everyone else, I was fortunate enough that I stayed with my 3 flatmates, and we pretty much had a very cozy time. We had a chat whenever we felt lonely and things like that. So I did have that support with me, and I think those bi-weekly meetings that we used to have with Karthik and the team from Gurudwara, that really helped out. And we used to discuss what challenges other students were facing, and then we could tell them what exact places that energy, that help could be channelized to. So I think my help went in that way. And I think we pretty much ensured that everyone, all the community word came together, and we shared that out so that the right help could reach to the right people. So yeah, that's about.
Anjali, moving on to you, what was your experience with these places of worship? What did you see them doing during these times?
Yeah. So I'm the kind of person who would want to go to all the spiritual places, because that's where I would feel my mental is very stabilized, because I need a place where I could feel the calmness or find the peace in me. So I remember going through a lot of trauma in terms of uncertainty that might also affect my mental health. And with mental health, I would say that I was trying to be very fidgety, not being able to concentrate, and had a lot of struggles being able to figure out my own life. But then there was like very hotlines available by the government and also by an organization, as mentioned by Karthik, that's India Care. I remember talking to one of the person, and we just had a 30-40 minutes of conversation about what should I be doing when I don't know what my future lies on. Because I just wanted someone to be hearing me. That's it. Like, even if I know the other person might not find solution or would not let me know what's already there, but I just wanted someone to just be talking to me, just like comforting me and just letting me know that's okay to think all this. So with my experience, I would say that definitely there is a lot of impact on people's mental health, and with the organization really supporting free hotlines, free help, free psychological services, that was easy to say that.
You've picked a very important point, and that was something I was going to ask Karthik and Darshan to Anjali about mental health. So, Karthik and Darshan, has it ever occurred that you've had students calling you or approaching you to where to go to for their mental health, or did they ever want to talk to someone to ease out their mental harassment? Karthik, I'll start with you. Did you have any of that experience with any international student?
With regards to mental health, majority of the students, they didn't identify they're having that issue. When they talk to us for something else, for example, I had a student started just crying. They, like, on the phone call, they were not talking, they were just crying, we recognize that, the person on the other end recognize that they are going through some kind of trauma, they're going through some kind of emotions, where, directing them what they want, just having, sometimes listening to their conversations without it, they don't even need any kind of advice or anything like that. Sometimes they need someone to hear out. Sometimes they think we know better, so they want to tell us what they're going through, and then for us to then guide them, go to this organization, there is help available, and from this person, from that organization. So that helps them a lot. And a lot of students went through this, whether they identified it or not. Some, like Darshan said, they were living in groups. That's the best part for the students. They were all living with their friends. So majority of them just overcame it without even realizing they were going through some struggles because of their friends who were there. They were talking to their friends and all these things. In some cases, friends were the problem. When the groceries were going, they were like, it created a division. Like, one house, there is five students living. And when somebody writes us and gets a grocery, and the other four, they were not sharing because this student is not out of job. They are not getting any money, and they don't want to burden their parents to send money now all the time. So they were not willing to just, they were not sure what will happen, whether they will get another round of grocery. So that created unnecessary stress. And then, for them to understand, no, the help is available for everyone. They just need to reach out. Majority of them didn't know to reach out. This mental health was a major concern for the students, but thank God, the support system they had by themselves, organically within their networks and within their groups and all these things, they came out of it. If they were not living in that environment, it would have been very tough on them. But there are a lot of organizations, Chris, like, Indian Care is doing, like Australian India Sports Council from my organization, we also partner with Indian Care for their project SASS, that called South Asian Student Support. It's a fantastic project they're doing. So they are having various topics which has been spoken by the professionals and the various leaders of the field. They're having these webinars where they can give these information out. This project is supported by the Study Melbourne and the Victorian government as well. So they're doing it very professionally, run by Dr. Jyotsna, who's having she knows, coming from the university spectrum, she knows what the students needs. And it's also done by the students themselves. They recruited the students to run this project, So these organizations like Indian Care and Gurudwaras and Temple, they are also helping the students overcome these issues, and they are guiding them into proper support services, which is available for the students. Majority of the universities also, I think, reached out to students proactively, sending them emails and asking them, if they have any issues, to reach out to this, support system, which is available at free of cost for the students. So majority of the universities also did that, which is very good on them for that support.
Yeah, it is. I think even in Swinburne Uni, we were having these proactive emails being sent out for talking to a counselor, confidential conversations, and everything was happening. Darshan, quickly on you as well. What was your experience when you had to deal with somebody's mental health, and which direction did you forward them to for proper help?
Okay. So when it comes to the mental health aspect, I really didn't have a lot of people reaching out to me regarding this. I still feel it's pretty much a taboo, especially among the Indian people, that mental health is not a thing. They really don't. They feel like crying. They want to vent things out. They need help, but they're very afraid to go and ask sometimes. So I've always considered that, and I haven't got a reaction from our university students really, but I think I took this proactive initiative that I actually made out a list of my current my batchmates as well as my juniors. So I was the president of the Indian club for almost about a year, because of which I knew a lot of my junior students who joined in later after me. So I proactively used to have at least 2 calls every day with different people. So I actually made a list of acquaintances and people who I knew from the club as well as the Indian community in general. And I knew that a few of them actually looked up to me. So it was just a catch-up call, just wanting to know, just checking in with them, how they're doing. and how life was treating them. Do they have any plans and things like that? So apart from that, I think I didn't wait really for anyone to reach out to me regarding their mental health issue, because I really felt it was pretty much a taboo, and it still is. So I proactively just reached out to a lot of students and spoke to them on a one-on-one level, even if it was like for 45 minutes to 1 hour. We just had a casual conversation, and I ended the calls with telling them if they have anything, please feel free to text me. Happy to give a call or maybe chat late nights and things like that. It's completely all right. So that was my
When you
contribution.
mentioned, Darshan, when you mentioned it's a taboo, did you see that experience coming from the student themselves, that they were just because they would feel shy or intimidated, or it was something their immediate surroundings told them that you can't really talk about your mental health because somebody might just judge you? What was your...
No. So I think the viewpoint that I come here with is that a lot of students, when they come here from India, they still have that thing in their mind that they cannot reach out to anyone, or talking about mental health is not something that is pretty encouraged, and they do not talk very openly to people. So that is one thing that I have been focusing on. And I think during this phase, one of my own friends back in India was suffering from a mental health issue. And I really know this fact, because that I had to literally push him from being in a different continent, just push him to actually go and get some support. So
Wow.
yeah. And the person that I'm talking about, my friend, he's a chartered accountant. So even the most educated people, when they are feeling shy to do anything, I think where this is going.
Yeah, I know. The next thing is something that I myself saw on one of the groups. So there were reports of these female students asking out for help, and in return for help, they were being requested for sexual favors. And that took a major view, and many people reported this. Many female students reported this happening to them. So, what have been your experiences? Karthik, starting with you, have you ever heard of these incidents where female students were asked for sexual encounters and favors in return for help?
I have seen this discussed in the Facebook groups and Facebook or social media of a few of my friends' circle as well. It is very, very disappointing, and at the same time very scary to how, like, it's something which is unknown territory, where the students are exposed to these kind of monstrous behavior of few people. And what happens is, this stops the students, particularly the female students, seeking help. Then it creates a fear among them. If one of them is affected, even one is affected, they're going to talk to their friends, and it creates a fear among them. It destroys the effort, whatever the community has put in, just by one or two incidents. And unfortunately, I believe it has been happened, not happening, because there was some media articles about it, and so it has brought to light, and people started talking openly also, so which has I think scared these people away. But I would say, using this platform, I would say to any student, just this help is available. This country is so, there is no one can bully you, no one can intimidate you, from any level, any capacity. No one can do anything to you. Just come out and seek help. The police, if it's emergency, the police is available. If not, the various community organizations is there. Seek help. Go to your universities. There's big support systems. If you're in TAFE or universities, reach out to the student coordinator. Tell them openly. You can be confidential as well. You don't need to discuss your private details. You can be confidential, but seek help. No one can do anything. Just don't take this quietly, because when you come outside and start talking about it, it will stop from others doing it, and it will give them strength for others to come out and talk as well. So unfortunately, it did happen from what we hear. But in my opinion, it's spread widely, so everybody knows what it is, and they are very cautious and dealing with it.
Yeah. I was shocked to this. How would people do this to people? Darshan, what has been your experience? Darshan, Anjali, both of you, on this matter especially.
I think I'm again in the same phase as you, Chris. I've gone through those reports, and I really feel pathetic reading about that. And that people are actually taking advantage of such situations and asking for such unwanted favors. But I think the best person to talk about here would be Anjali, because she's a current student, and I really don't know how things went with her. But I'd really appreciate if she could share some insights about it.
Yeah. So, first of all, I remember not obviously, I was fortunate enough not being able to experience it or see it in any of my acquaintances, but I also remember reading through it, and the first thing the first feeling that came upon me was, do I need to be very neat? Do I need to be very sure before this actually happens to me? So I remember being very, very cautious, and it did discourage me. There was a point where I was being very skeptical in even talking to someone, because you never know what the other person would ask for, and this had a very spillover effect. Because with only one incident, you would want to also suspect everyone around you. So you never know who actually turns out to be the wild person around you. But it really felt very, very disheartened seeing how people can take the opportunity, or they could really take good advantage of someone's vulnerability. And as a female sexual orientation, I realized that what we can do is just like stop it, just like not let it spread across, or just like come out and speak about it, because that would be encouraging for others. Yeah.
Absolutely, Anjali. I think the only thing we can do is just speak and stop about it, because to me it was appalling that members of the same community, like they were also international students one day, right? And they are doing this to young girls who are genuinely seeking out for help. Just shocked me. And to what point do you believe in humanity anymore if people can't help in the most delicate issues? So we need to start talking about it. Another question I have for you guys is like, we know that there are jobs coming out every now and then, but do you people have any idea or experience where there was a job available but a student did not take the job, or an offer was being made but the student just denied that offer, the application? Karthik, we'll start with you first.
In all fairness, the jobs just started coming for the students. It's when the restriction eased out, that's when the industry where the students were predominantly employed started opening up for them. And some students are a little picky, some of them, but we can't force anyone to just because they are in a situation where they need a job. We can't tell them you have to do any job which comes your way. So we don't know the reasons, and it's best not to push anyone. That's how I understood. Because recently, one post was there for an international student said like she's sleeping hungry, and she or he, sleeping hungry, and they don't have a job and they want job. And when we reached out to them, and when we gave options, they didn't take that. It was a restaurant job. Even one shift, they didn't take it. What reason they didn't take it, we don't know. Maybe they, and we tend to not ask them these questions as well, because it puts a pressure on them. Because the community is helping, they have to listen to whatever we say. It's not like that. But I think it's early stages, to say that the students are just picking the jobs what they want or something. It's early stages, because we just started opening up, and I think sooner or later all these jobs will come back, because we are getting into a holiday season. It's going to be a busy season this time. So I think it'll have its own pick up automatically. Yeah.
Darshan, moving on to 15 from where Karthik just left, he mentioned that students might be being picky. So during this situation where things are very thin, could the students afford to be picky? What was going on in their minds? Did you have any idea? Like, why were they being picky? What was the reason for being selected?
Well, that comes as a surprise to me that students have actually been doing that, because I've encountered with a lot of students who are actually looking for jobs. I wouldn't deny that the job market's coming back, but it's a little slow. Also, let's not forget the fact that the pandemic even affected the localites, the ones that are preferred more, of course. So, all those jobs that are coming up are having a lot of applications. Like most of them are from the local people as well, and if you're getting a local person to join in, I think it's kind of a disadvantage that the international students generally get overshadowed because of that. But like Karthik said, it's just opening up, and the holiday season is bound to bring more jobs. But I really believe if the students are going through a tough phase and they're really not able to support their living here, uh, they possibly wouldn't deny any of the jobs that come their way. But again, it's their personal choice. You cannot force anyone to do anything. If they want to do that particular job, if they do not want to, it's something that is within themselves. So we can just give them with a platter of opportunities as a community, but to pick them or to leave them is supposed to be their choice.
Yeah. True. Anjali, what will be your view on that? If you had ever gone job hunting, or have you seen any friend being picky or like, I can't do this, whatever?
Yeah,
Have you
I
experienced
feel
it?
there are many reasons, and what I've observed during 2 weeks is like first people I feel are overwhelmed with whatever groceries they have to keep, so they are not very actively looking for a job. They feel that they can stay for another 1 2 months till the time they receive the job they really wanted to. Second, I would say the like taking the for me, I had an experience of getting a restaurant job, but the moment when they announced that how my payment would be cash payment and how it would be like very below than the average one, I do not want to take any risk when it comes to having a cash-based job. So I see so many restaurants only offering students pay scale very low. I would not want to mention the names, but as low as 9 10. I feel that's very discouraging because you would not want to work in a sector first. That's very risky, taking the fact there is no direct payment. Second, it's very uncertain and would limit your efforts and skills because when you know the average pay, you do not want to take anything less than that. Third, I feel people are being very optimistic about the fact that since it's opening up, they might get the job of what they always wanted for. So they would still want to take another 2 3 weeks of toll and would say that and might believe that things would be completely opened up and they would be wanting to wait for the opportunity they are really made for rather than taking any opportunity at the moment and regret later for the next opportunity.
Yeah, that was a good revelation, and I think, as you said, that we just need to wait the time out and see what lies ahead in store for us. I'm being mindful of the time, but before we wrap up, Karthik, one last question, probably for all of you. We just heard that a few female students, many female students, were being targeted in the wrong direction, and so if in future, God forbidding, if in future this happens, or if you ever have cases where a female student is targeted or anyone is homeless, where should these students go to? Which organizations can they go to report such cases?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing it up, Chris. It's very important for them to know. First they should make a police complaint, regardless. Some cases I've heard like police have said, they can't do anything about it. It's nothing has happened. It is wrong. They need to register their complaint with the police and insist them to take this complaint because it is an offense. To ask anyone for sexual favors, it's an offense, and then they can go to the university student coordinators and discuss with them because the universities have an established network. They have not only they will guide them in going to the right authorities, they also will counsel them. They have a counseling support system as well. So this is important. A student when they go through this emotional trauma, they need to be counseled. It's not just making a complaint and seeking help in getting this person removed from this thing. They need to get counseled as well because they need to come back and get that trust back onto discussing with the strangers. Predominantly, most of these students, everybody is a stranger here. They are coming, leaving their family and their friends and all their support systems and coming to an alien country. So every one of us is a stranger. I'm meeting Anjali for the first time. And with Darshan, we just had, this beautiful work relationship with the students' support for a few months. Before that, we were strangers as well. So it's very important. They talk to their university coordinators and tell them, and it's all confidential information. And the last point of support, which is a very big support, is the community organizations. Every single area you will find community organizations which is so deeply enriched with variety of people from that. They will have female members, they have male members. So the students can seek help from the community organizations that they want to talk to, whoever they are comfortable with talking with. And these community organizations are registered bodies. So when they are registered bodies, so they have they can't do the wrong thing, because they have a certain rules to follow, and they have to address. And if they are reaching out to a community organization, they can't help, they will certainly guide the student in the right direction and point them to the right authorities or right organizations to give that help. So it's best the student can expose all these options, or they can go to anyone they like. So there is plenty of help out there, and everything will be confidential, and they don't need to worry about anything. Just seek this help and the support services which is available. And a simple Google search will tell them what are the organizations in the area. Facebook search or Google search. So talking about it is very essential. And as I said, no one can intimidate anyone in Australia. It's very open. Every services is readily available. It's just a matter of seeking help. And the students need to be educated about it. And many organizations are working as well for this matter. Many women's group have started working actively with the students just to protect them from these kind of issues.
Thanks, Karthik. Moving on lastly to Darshan and Anjali, if you have any questions in your way for consumers or people who encounter these requests, where would you kind of point them towards? What would be your go-to organization?
Right. I'd like to start by saying that definitely reaching out to the police for help is the first thing that needs to be done. Secondly, I'm not very aware about the organizations that are really helping the women, and because of that, I think the best thing I would do is, after having a chat with them, I would possibly talk to someone who I know or I trust. So maybe my next call would be to someone like Karthik, who could be the right person to guide me as to where I can possibly direct the other person. So if you do not have any contacts or anything, you definitely need to know someone from the community who has the required knowledge. So I think my first approach would be to do that. And if they require any assistance with the police, I would be more than happy to accompany them as well. And I think there's something more than the problems that are being faced by the students itself or the women in general, is that because of this pandemic and the vulnerability that the students as well as everyone is in, there have been multiple scams that are going around, be it in terms of visas or be it even in terms of financial help. I remember receiving a call a couple of days back stating that there was an arrest warrant in my name because of multiple transactions and things like that. And I just cut the phone and I went around on Google, checked what this thing was, and apparently this turned out to be a scam. And so just so I know the fact that a lot of people actually watch this show, and because of this reason, I would really want to tell everyone that if you're getting such calls, please do not reveal any of your details. Do not give any personal details that you're being asked for. These calls can be scam, can be real. If they are real, you can reach out to the authorities yourself. You do not need them to call you. So please do not reveal any personal details, and I'm sure we can go through this and we can overcome this together.
Thank you for that, Darshan. That was a very critical point. And let me tell you, it's just not the international students. Everyone receives those calls. I was received, and unluckily, I fell prey to the scam, and I paid them some money. But let's not get there. Anjali, what would be your take if someone goes your way and seeks help for these encounters happening with them?
Yes. So, taking the fact that I need to understand the situation and taking the shoe in my hand, I would be like, I would not want them to just go and direct to the police, because first of all, we are already shaken with what happened, and going through the police and that alone might be needs another round of strength that one person who is already the victimized may not have. So I would always, and I have advised before as well, I would just ask them to contact university. Every university has a counseling services, and every university have a different cells dealing with different causes. And it's better to have a good advice from someone is have a very diverse range of, whether it's like about legal plethora details, or whether it's about how do we need to strategize, or how do we need to take steps. Because I know I might be very horrified if anything like this happened, and if someone asked me to go to police station, and if that would be the first time, I would rather not go there. So instead of just like curbing it under the blanket, I would definitely advise the person to contact someone who can keep the situation accountable, and then might take it to a higher position.
Now that's very true, Anjali. As a woman, I also understand what you're saying. And I think if I might add on to this, I think having that buddy system also helps, where you can talk to one of your trusted friends. That could be anyone, a man, a woman, anyone. Having that one friend helps tremendously, where you can just shake off your head and then they guide you to other organizations. But we have to wrap up somewhere. So thanks, guys. That was a big help that you did by coming on the show, and this was a hugely constructive discussion. And I hope many students listen to us and take away something positive with them. And thank you again for being with me tonight. And for all the listeners, I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and have a good night. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.